in the book, but I see one on the homework that we haven't done yet. Let's do like this one. Okay. P over Q plus 3 over R. All right, look at this. Everybody's favorite, fractions, right? Now, you can't pull out a calculator and get an answer to this with your calculator. All right, you got to know your rules for adding fractions. Now, multiplying fractions is pretty easy. Adding and subtracting fractions, that's probably a little more difficult. What's the key thing when you add or subtract fractions? Is to find a what? Common denominator, right? You've been doing that stuff since you're a little kid, right? Probably, I don't know, when did you learn fractions? Like 4th grade maybe? 5th grade? Something like that? I can't remember exactly. That was a long time ago for me. So, but you got to find a common denominator. Now look at your denominator. 2 completely different numbers, aren't they? So let's just let's do this. Plus, I don't know, 1/5. What if you're going to add these fractions? We'll put this off for just a second. What if you're going to add these? How would you find a common denominator if you had a 3 and a 5? What number does 3 and 5 divide into evenly? 15. That's the smallest number that 3 and 5 divide into evenly, isn't it? Okay, so how did we get the 15? What did we do to that 3 and the 5? Multiply them together. So let's go back up to here. Follow my train of thought here, okay? I did this for a reason. How did you find a common denominator? Just multiply the 2 numbers together, right? So what would our common denominator be if I had one number as Q and then R? It would just be QR, wouldn't it? Everybody see that? This was 3 times 5, so this is Q times R. Got it? We just can't make it into a nice pretty number like 15 because it doesn't come out to just one number, okay? But you just write QR. Let's go back to this. Now, what did you do? Now, a lot of times when you're a kid, you and maybe even last year, I don't know, you probably did these up and down, didn't you? You had a 2/3, and then underneath of it you had a plus 1/5. Do you remember doing that when you first started? In algebra, a lot of times though, when we do fractions, we work across instead of up and down. So this is why I'm doing it across like this. And sometimes it's easier that way. What'd you do to that 3? What did you multiply that 3 by in order to get that 15? Of 5. So what are we going to have to do to the top? Multiply that by 5 as well, right? Okay, so do you remember when you're a kid you went, I'll put it out here, you went times 5, right? So then what do you do to the top? Multiply that by 5 as well. Agreed? Okay. All right, so we multiply that by 5, multiply this by 5, so what do you get? You get a 10. Plus, what'd you do to this 5 to get 15? 3. Multiplied by 3, didn't you? Okay, so multiply, oops, let's change the color. So you multiply that 5 by a 3, so you got to multiply the top by a 3, and so you multiply that by 3, that's a 3, so what do you get? You get 13 over 15. Let's do the same thing over here though, alright? The numbers don't come out quite as pretty as this because you got all these variables, but what'd you multiply Q by in order to get to this?
R.
An R. So if you multiply this by R, what do you do to this?
Nico
Multiply
Kramer
that
and
by
Jaden
R.
Collins, please come to the
So I got
office.
PR. Everybody with me? What'd you do to that R to get QR? Multiplied it by a Q. So what do you do to this? Multiply that by a Q. So I get 3Q. And there's nothing I can do with that. Can I add PR plus 3Q? No, I can't. Over here, I could add 10 plus 3, couldn't I? Because they were like terms. These are not like terms. I can't do anything else with it, so I just circle it, and that's my answer. It's not so bad, is it? All right. Do you see how it relates to a regular addition problem? But could you do this on a calculator? No. All right. Now, if I told you to go 2/3 plus 1/5, some of your inclinations would be to pull out the calculator, punch it in, right? But I'm trying to teach you more than just algebra. I'm trying to teach you how to work with fractions as well. All right. So, and that's very important, especially in algebra. You work with a lot of fractions in algebra. All right. Enough of that. I think we're good. Take a look at your worksheet. Is there anything on there that really messes you up? Oh, you know what? I did that whole problem, and I'm looking at this, and I didn't even read the instructions. You know what they did? This was one of those evaluate problems, and they tell you what P is equal to, R is, and Q is. So all you got to do is plug numbers into it. I didn't realize that. I just kind of took a glance at the problem and thought that's what they were doing. So actually, that's probably why they didn't give me an example like this. Actually, you don't even have to do this on this particular lesson. But it was good to learn. That was free of charge. That won't be on your bill, okay? All right, so Didn't realize you're getting a bill for this, did you? All right, is there anything? I'll tell you what, we got a few minutes here. Let's go through a couple problems on the worksheet. I'm not going to do all the ones you didn't do, okay? I'll let you finish them up tonight. But if there's one on there you're like, oh, I have no clue how to even start that. Is there anything like that that you want to, or maybe you tried it and you just couldn't get it? Number 7. Okay, yeah, that would have been my guess too, that people would ask about. Because everybody's favorite fractions are on there. I'll tell you what, let's go with this puke green, okay? Number 7. Alright. Got a big old bracket. You got minus 3/8 minus parentheses negative 5/6. Yes, you may. Minus another bracket, 3/2 minus 5/12. Wow. Took a long time just to write the thing out. Alright, here we go. Let's do this kind of quick. You see this minus minus thing right here? What's that going to be?
Positive.
Remember I said everybody
Plus,
likes that?
plus.
Remember plus plus? Add the opposite. Remember my little saying? Add the opposite when you have subtraction, or add a line, change sign, whatever you want to say. Alright, so basically what we have is this. We have negative 3/8 plus 5/6, right? I'll just write it without all the junky parentheses and brackets in there. It just looks a little neater that way. Alright? So I'll work that one out in a second. Minus, and then I'll tell you what, I'm just going to rewrite this. Is that alright? So we'll do the same step in the same order. Here we go. Now we actually do have to find a common denominator. So it's actually good that I went through that stuff we talked about earlier. So don't pull out a calculator for this. Let's actually work this thing out. What number
24.
do both of these go into evenly? Right, 24. Now 48, they go into 48, right? But the lowest common denominator, right, the smallest number is the best one to use. So 24. Now watch how I do this. I do it a little more algebraically, okay? I just put one denominator here instead of 2 separate ones. Is that okay with you? Because they're going to have the same denominator. So what'd you do to 8 to get to 24? Multiplied it by what? 3. So you multiply that by 3, and that gives you what? Negative 9. Everybody see that? So I just put it over the same denominator. You know, people do this different ways. I kind of like this way. What'd you do to 6? What'd you multiply 6 by to get to 24? 4. So what do you do to that 5? Multiply that by 4. So you get a 20. All right? Good. And I'll tell you what, let's just work it out. What's 20 minus 9? It's 11, I think, right? So it's 11 over 24. It's not my answer because I got this rest of the thing to do, don't I? So let's do this thing right here. 2 and 12. What would my common denominator be with 2 and 12? It would be 12. Okay, now you could put 24 if you wanted to, but then you're going to have to reduce later on, and it's a lot easier to find the lowest common denominator. So what'd you multiply 2 by to get to 12? Multiply that by 6 and you get 18, right? After a while, you wouldn't have to put that in there, right? You can just kind of do that in your head. 12 times what? Just 1, so you don't really change it at all, so it's just minus 5. So put a big minus in between. 18 minus 5 is 13, right? And over 12. Now, do we just leave it like that? No. I'll tell you what, let's scroll down a little bit. Keep working down. Now I've got to find a common denominator with those two. 24. Okay. This is just times 1, so that's times 1, which is 11. This is times 2, right? So this is times 2, which is 26. And then 11 minus 26, negative 15, right, over 24. Do we leave it like that and circle it? How do we always write our answer as a fraction? We always have to do what to it? Simplify, reduce, okay? I like to say reduce. So what goes into both of these? Or does anything? Yeah, 3 goes into both of these. 3 goes into this, how many times? 3 goes into this, 8 times. So look what my answer is, negative 5/8. Just like that. That was a few steps, wasn't it? All right, there's no way you're going to put a 7 and then put negative 5/8 and then that's your answer. Would you agree? All right, because I'll put show your work. Might even put an exclamation point. Okay.
An underline a few times.
Yeah, I might go crazy. So look at all that work you had to do. And I really do believe you do need to show just about every one of those steps right there. All right, I think it's very important. It's very important for you to understand it. It's not just because I'm some picky math teacher and like to see you working like crazy all the time. This is to help you understand the problems and to get the right answer every single time consistently. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do is just let you work on that worksheet. Finish up that worksheet tonight. I've gone through pretty much every one of the style of problems that you've got on there. And then tomorrow you should feel a little bit better, hopefully. Do you think you're going to feel a little bit better tomorrow about this worksheet? Yeah. I think you'll feel a little bit better about it tomorrow. We'll go over the answers to it tomorrow and then see how you did, and then we'll start a new lesson tomorrow. Everybody good with that? All right. Go to YouTube, right, if you need to watch this. Now, look, we took 35 minutes. Normally I don't take quite that long to teach in here, but maybe there's just one problem that you needed to find. You know, you just kind of forget what I did. Just scroll through, find that problem. You don't have to watch the whole 35-minute version of this. Everybody understand that? Okay. All right. Everybody say bye, and then you can be on YouTube. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Bye!
Okay, good.